Factors include inputs like your industrial carbon tax, like your liberal fuel standard, like your food packaging tax. We have the most indebted households in the entire G7 because of your failed policies. In 2023, you said you would bring down those costs. Why have they not gone down? Thanks, Chair. Minister, the Parliamentary Budgeting Officer costed this rebate at $12.4 billion. Your government has already doubled Justin Trudeau's deficit at $80 billion. Where are you going to find another $12.4 billion to cover the cost?
Well, to go back to your first question about PBO, different assumptions. So this is not unusual.
Whether it's 11 or 12 billion, where are you going to find that cost?
Just different assumptions. But the difference between their number and our number. I would say to be in government is to choose. We chose to support Canadians at the time of need. And this is part also of our Canadian values.
Minister,
and the fact that you voted in favor.
You could have also chose to reduce costs of groceries, but instead you didn't. The real issue is that the cost of groceries. So you're adding another $12.4 billion of deficit onto Canadians. There's only a few ways to cover that, as you know. You can either raise taxes, put more debt onto Canadians, or make government cuts. Which is it to cover this cost?
Well, I would say there's other ways to grow the economy. That's exactly what we're doing. That's why you saw Budget 2025, that we have generational investments to grow our economy, because
Minister,
that's the way that we're going to make Canadians richer.
0% growth in GDP in November. All of last year, GDP per capita flatlined at 0%. And the Bank of Canada is basically saying it's going to flatline next year for growth. So I don't think you can say that the economy is going to be doing any better or help you guys out. But you are the guy who made a big claim in 2023 about lowering grocery prices. So after this rebate, can you please tell Canadians how much will grocery prices go down, just the price?
Well, I would just want to correct the record, Madam Chair. Canada will, not me, but the International Monetary Fund has said, which is a credible source, say that Canada would have the second fastest growth in the G7. So I think you should be rejoicing with that, because this is good news for Canada.
I don't think Canadians would be rejoicing.
Well, the IMF is a pretty
highest household debt in the entire
a very
G7.
credible source.
But again, Minister, we got to go back to the question: how much will groceries go down with this rebate? We just need to know the price.
Well, I'm sure when you voted in favor, you applauded the fact that not only there'll be a boost, but there's also a bridge to 2030 and structural measures that will allow to have a more resilient food production in Canada. That's why we also will have a national food strategy. And I think it matters to Canadians for food security. We have the highest grocery inflation
in the entire G7. In 2023, you made this grand show that you were going to pull in all the grocery CEOs. You said you were going to be the minister on a mission. You said that you were going to be the guy that gave it to them, and they were going to stabilize grocery prices. And since then, now we have the highest grocery inflation in the entire G7. So if you're not going to tell us how much prices will go down, can you at least tell us, minister on a mission, on what date will grocery costs go down for Canadians? Just the date.
I think, Madam Chair, it'd be important maybe that I'm happy to produce that for the record of the committee, but there's something called the Understanding the Resurgence of Food Inflation in 2025 by the Bank of Canada. I think that might help my colleagues to understand the source of inflation. This is coming from the Bank of Canada.
Great. I read that report today, Minister.
No, but I think you want me to quote it.
In that report, it says two-thirds of food costs. The food costs that we see today that are the highest, grocery inflation in the G7, the cost of food, two-thirds of that are caused by domestic factors. Domestic factors include inputs like your industrial carbon tax, like your liberal fuel standard, like your food packaging tax. Those are things that are directly in you and your government's hands that you guys refused and in fact voted against when we brought it forward to help lower the cost of food for Canadians. We see 2.2 million Canadians going to a food bank in a single month. 700,000 plus of those are children. And we have the most indebted households in the entire G7 because of your failed policies. In 2023, you said you would bring down those costs. Why have they not gone down? Just answer, why are our costs and why is our food inflation double the U.S.'s?
I just want to help my colleague again, because that's in the report, but just for Canadians to be able at home, it says the rise in food inflation in 2025 was mostly driven by pressures from import costs.
Excuse me.
That's the Bank of Canada. It's not even me who
says that.
It also
says two-thirds of the cost of food
it's helping you to understand the nature of the inflation.
If I could just say one person at a time, please. It's a bit of a challenge for the interpreters.
Minister, your $925 top-up, and right beside it is $1,000 increase in grocery costs because your government is spending. So there's a loss already for Canadians. Your rebate is literally $10 a week on a weekly $300 grocery bill. How is that supposed to help Canadians? Should you not be lowering the cost of groceries?
I would say to you, maybe
Sorry,
$945 may not make a difference, but it's going to make a difference for millions of Canadians.
Mr. Hallan, Minister. We will continue with Mr. Sawatsky.
We'll wrap it up there, gang. Aaron, Canadian Looney. If you enjoy these committee videos, there's a great reason to smash like and hit subscribe. We cover a lot of this stuff. Aaron, Canadian Looney. Get your Canadian federal politics right here. Ciao for now. Thank you for watching this video. We'll catch you in the next one. Later, gang.